Good evening.
Hi there.
Welcome to Ren.
Today we're going to talk about a few lessons that we learned during our travels sailing from Maine to the Florida Keys. We made a little list that we'll refer to as we go.
Number 1. The lows are low. I underestimated how uncomfortable my body would get on the journey. I had different bouts of seasickness, and one time, which I mentioned in our previous video, where I threw up like 20 times over the course of over a course of a day. So that was really uncomfortable for me in my body multiple times, and I never really thought about that before I came on this journey.
I didn't have seasickness. I had other lows. Sometimes things would break, and like the autopilot sort of malfunctioned a couple times. Like the belt loosened up, and it took me a while to learn how to adjust it properly. So a couple times I got pretty frustrated, like dealing with that, and because it takes a lot of energy to steer the boat all the time when you're going for days, weeks, and months at a time. So it just felt like really important to me to have that autopilot working as an example of the things that went wrong that challenged me.
Number 2. The highs were freaking highs. The views from the boat were just spectacular, and seeing dolphins a bunch of times and them swimming with us for a while, and just like really great moments between the two of us or whoever's on board, and just having a lot of fun and sailing, and just like the adventure and the spirit of the adventure as we're going along, and the vastness of it just all felt really grand and big, and a lot of really, really good times.
Yeah, some highs that I would mention are like when the sailing was really good, when we were doing like an overnight or an offshore passage, and we were able to just sail and not use the engine. It was quiet and peaceful. The stars are out at night, and you just have a lot of time to reflect, to relax, read books. Those are great times, and like covering a lot of distance. I love the passages when they went well and smoothly.
Yeah. Number 3, communication.
Yeah, we learned that communication is really important. We had sailed on a smaller boat together a couple times, but we really, with this boat, Ren, we really just got her, fixed her up a little bit, and then just headed down the East Coast. So we hadn't developed a communication strategy between ourselves, and that mostly comes up during crucial times like docking and anchoring. It always went well, but it took some practice to develop our system of communication. So now we have that, and we know exactly how to communicate with each other, what needs to happen from one end of the boat to the other.
Yeah, and even the other boat, like I hadn't sailed at all really before this. I mean, so it was like you were sailing and I was there for like a day or something on the boat, the other boat. I don't think we really did a big trip together on that one. But so like anchoring on this boat, the first time I did it was the first time I had done it, and same with docking, and basically like most things on the boat. So it did take us a while to figure it out, and one of my favorite things from this trip is in Oriental. There's this like little tiny store, and it has a lot of great boating needs and gifts. And there's a shirt, and on the back it says, "I'm sorry for what I said when we were," and the options were docking or anchoring or more or something like that. Basically. And we were just like, "Oh, that's funny."
We were nice to each other, but it
right.
was challenging at times to communicate from 30 feet away over the sound of an engine usually.
Yeah. 4, money. Yeah. Well, I think one thing before we even get into this topic is like our expectations of how long this trip would take. So maybe that's like 3.5 of like number 3.5. We were saying, oh, maybe it'll take about a month, and it took us like 2. So for that kind of budgeting, like if I were to do it again, I would make sure I'd be budgeting for 2 months, maybe even 3. But I didn't do that, and so that was a challenge. And there's not a way to really make money when you're on a boat, cruising and transiting. And the way that I like, depending on where we were and what we were doing, and if we were out on the water, like the open ocean or not, or if we were in the intercoastal, like the conditions varied. So if I were to get like an online job, I wouldn't, like, depending on that, what the situation was and how my body was feeling, and if it was like a hard day for me, like I wouldn't have been able to do that. So yeah, that was a challenge for me financially.
Yeah, I budgeted for we were estimating it would take about a month to get from Maine to Florida. It took about 7 weeks. I had $21 in my bank account when we got here. So we made it. It would have been nice to have a little more cushion. I was feeling a little insecure when we got here about money, because if we had needed any major expenses, like a repair or something, we would have been out of luck. But we're pretty resourceful, so we made it. We went out to eat a few times along the way. You know, we bought propane, we bought food. The budget was pretty right on. We might do another episode specifically about budgeting at some point, but yeah, plan on it taking a little longer than expected. That's our lesson.
Okay, so number 5, bikes. We got bikes in Annapolis, and folding bikes, and they have served us so well, especially in Florida. It's relatively flat, and they're 1-speed bikes, which wouldn't work in Maine or most places, but in Florida it works. And they're my main mode of transportation. Mostly yours too. I know the bus, with work and everything.
Yeah, I ride it every day.
But we both ride our bikes every single day. Mm-hmm. And yeah, they've just come so like in handy. And there was a time where we were getting Ubers to like go to the grocery store if it was over a few miles away, because walking and the load, and if we had propane. But the bikes have made it really doable. So I'd highly recommend folding bikes if you're doing this kind of voyage.
Yeah, we have 2 Dahan folding single-speed bikes, and folded up, they fit right underneath our dinghy on the foredeck, so they don't really take up too much space. We have a 30-foot boat, so space is at a premium, and I do not regret storing them at all. It just is so handy to be able to load up with groceries or propane, like Danny said, and it's our transportation and exercise and recreation tool a lot of times. It's a great way to get to the beach. I get to the bus stop to ride the bus to work now that we're working down here. So yeah, bikes are great tools to have.
Yeah. 6, water.
Yeah, drink lots of water. My first multi-day sailing trip, I ended up with a kidney stone. I don't think I was drinking enough water. So I knew for this trip we wanted to have lots of drinking water. Our boat has decent tankage. I mean, we don't carry 100 gallons, but we carry...
was it like 45?
Yeah, something like 45 gallons in tanks. And then we have jugs, maybe another 10 to 15 gallons of drinking water in jugs.
But the plumbing on this boat is weird, and 2 of the water tanks don't connect to the main one. And
Yeah,
the faucet.
we didn't know about that when we started, that 2 out of our 3 tanks don't really drain into the water system very well. So there's our system runs out of water, but there's still a bunch in the side tanks, so that's something we'll have to figure out.
Yeah.
Because it'd be nice to have access to all that water.
Yeah, and there's something to be said about having steady access to water. So now that we are at a marina and we're still filling up the jugs, with a hose, but we know it's there and it's steady. And when you're out on the water, and if you're going offshore for a few days, or you're not totally sure like where water access is, if you're anchoring, you're not necessarily going to a marina. Like, we, for the most part, did not go to very many marinas, or we just didn't do that. So we would dinghy ashore and fill up our waters, and so there's something to be said about like water security and just making sure that you have enough jugs to keep you through, know how much water you generally go through in a day. I think that's really important, and be aware of when your tanks are getting low. So we did pretty well. We were able to find a hose really when we needed it.
Yeah.
There's water's pretty around, but there were times like when we first started in Portland, we had our jugs and we didn't know where to go, so we just went to someone's like random house and
got some
hose water, and it tasted like hose, and we're like, okay. And we've learned a lot since then, yeah. And where to get water. But.
And another thing is, in the Northeast especially, once we got into November, a lot of water systems were shut down for the winter. Yeah. So like even docks that like Active Captain would show they had water, some of them we would get there and find that the water system had been winterized, yeah. And there wasn't water. So something to keep in mind if you're traveling later in the season.
Mm-hmm. Okay, number 7, cooking / going out to eat.
Yeah, it ties into the budget a little bit.
Yeah.
Early on in the trip, we went out to eat a little more. We were real excited about that. Like, we love food and sharing meals. So like, we get really excited to like go to this wing place or like a wood fired cookery place or something. And it was a lot of fun, but we hadn't really got a firm grasp of our budget at that point, so it was easy to do that. But we love cooking, so.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt, but New York City, that was like a big spending place on our way down. So just be aware if you're going through New York to have a budget in place, because we didn't really do that, and then we ended up with $21 at one point, and we were fine and made money, and it's all fine, but
luckily Sherry gave us that 25-pound bag of rice, so there's always rice. We'll always have rice.
We have rice. Thanks, Mom. And you were talking about cooking. We like cooking. And
right. Yeah, we like cooking, and we do a great job. Like we like whole foods and to eat really healthy. So that's incentive to eat on the boat, is because we eat better on the boat than we would in most restaurants. The challenge comes when you're like offshore or in rough waters, and the kitchen's going like this, and our stove doesn't have fiddles to keep the pots in place, so it can make it a challenge to like have a hot meal while underway. So make sure you have lots of snacks and vegetables and fruits on hand that don't need a lot of preparation. That's a lesson that I've learned.
And the quick meals, like I wouldn't choose it normally in day-to-day life, but the instant meals that you find in the grocery aisle, like
rice and beans,
those really came in handy when we're underway, and I was feeling nauseous and couldn't go down below, and he's making something really quick. Okay. Number, is that 8? 9? 8? Eight. Guests on board / crew expectation.
So we did have a couple of guests. We had 2 of my daughters, Anda and Amelia. Anda was on board for about a month, and Amelia for a little under a week. And it was a great experience, like sharing this boat travel with them. But it does change the dynamic, and on a small boat like this especially, you notice like the loss of space. I don't know, one example, we have a composting toilet system, so that involves bringing bags of our solid waste ashore to dispose of occasionally, and then a container of our liquid waste ashore to dispose of occasionally. And the more people, the more often they fill up, and it was a challenge to sort of delegate these tasks to the kids. They both had great attitudes about helping out, but there's something, I think there's still lessons to be learned there for us. After a while, I started to feel a little overwhelmed just with like the dishes and the amount of the toilet changes and cooking and all that. It's a lot more work when you have more people on board.
Yeah.
So I think in the future we'll work on scheduling chores a little better with crew and guests aboard.
Yeah. Yeah, and if you are doing something similar, I would say, and if you're having family visit, like just understanding, and now that we've been doing it for a while, we have a better sense of like, this is what it's going to be like when you're on the boat, and we actually really need help with these different tasks. And no, it's not our favorite thing to do to bag up, our solid waste, but it's something that needs to routinely be done for the benefit of the whole boat. So just letting everyone know before they come on, the kind of expectations that are in place, like being more part of the crew rather than a guest, because over time that does kind of add up and feels pretty weighty to be taken care of, more than your share, I would say. Okay, but also still have them on because it's a lot of fun and very meaningful. Number 9, tool garage. I'll let you take that one.
Tools, yeah. I like to tinker, and I consider myself fairly handy. And we're on an old boat, so I brought a lot of tools. There's one whole corner of the boat that's pretty much dedicated to tools. So that came in really handy. We, on a number of occasions, had to fix something. We had to fabricate brackets for like mounting different things, and when our engine wasn't working for us at first, we had to make a mountain outboard bracket on there, and just like every little thing, we did some electrical work. We did fixing leaks, so like every kind of screwdriver and wrench and a cordless drill and a bunch of bits and a multimeter and good like wire connectors, all that stuff. We used pretty much every tool we had.
Yeah.
So I'm really glad I brought all that. That's a lesson learned and reinforced on this trip, is it's good to be prepared to fix and fabricate when needed.
Yeah.
Yeah, we put a floor in. We did it all. We did a lot on this boat while underway.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, and then finally, number 10 is exercise or movement. And I understand. I'm so, like, we both really like to move, and I really like to move my body, and I knew beforehand that it would be more challenging, but there are some aspects that are really active, and then others where you're, like, when you're offshore, you're just kind of like, you're in a small space. You're stuck in a small space for that long, so you have to get creative with how you move. And I practiced a lot of yoga when I was, during the active part of our journey. But even still, like, I would like to find. I'm still searching for, like, a routine that, especially while you're underway, that's flexible enough to adapt. And also, like, exercising when the boat's doing this can be really hard. So that was, a challenge that I'm still working through, of how to best, move my body. But I think I feel that I did a good job of staying active and limber as much as I could, but I think that there's still room for improvement.
Yeah, it is a challenge because there's sometimes a lot to do when underway. I found intracoastal to be very demanding. Like, you couldn't just set autopilot and, like, go do yoga for 20 minutes. Like, you had to basically be ready to steer or actively steering, all the time. So it was hard in some situations like that. But what I would say is take advantage of every chance you get to go ashore and take a walk or a bike ride. Get that aerobic exercise.
Mm-hmm.
Being on the boat, you can stretch, you can do your sit-ups and push-ups and all that. And even just balancing on a boat that's rocking is, I would consider, exercise. But really just be mindful and take advantage of your times on shore. Go for a jog, go for a walk, go for a bike ride and a swim, every chance you get. And just, it's a great way to explore the different towns you go through along the way, is to get out and run down the road and see what you can see.
All right, any last thoughts?
I still love being on this boat. So we're down here in the Florida Keys. We're both working. We're rebuilding our bank accounts, and we're going to take the budget lessons we learned from the way down here and put them into practice to get us back to Maine in the spring. That's the plan.
Yeah, and go do it. It's fun, it's rewarding, and it's an adventure. So if you like this, please give us a like, a thumbs up, subscribe. Leave a comment if you have any questions you'd like us to answer in another kind of Q&A video. And join us on Patreon and just show your love and support. Thank you guys so much.